Thank you very much, Reverend Sugino. Good morning. The message from His Excellency Judge C.G. Weeramantry, the former Vice President of the International Court of Justice. I quote, "I have much pleasure in sending this message to the special session of the RFP International Standing Commission on Disarmament and Security on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice on the question of the legality of the threat or use of nuclear weapons. This was one of the most important matters ever to be brought before the International Court of Justice, and the very question of the indiscriminate and stupendous threat it poses to the very survival of humanity was given much consideration. I am strongly of the view that the use or threat of use of nuclear weapons is illegal in any circumstance whatsoever. It violates the fundamental principles of international law and represents the very negation of the basic concerns underlying humanitarian law. It contradicts the fundamental principle of the dignity and the worth of the human person on which all legal systems depend. It endangers the human environment in a manner which threatens the entirety of life on planet and totally damages the interests of future generations. It violates our solemn trust to pass on to them a planetary environment in a condition which is at least as good as that in which we inherited it. No generation since the human race began has committed such a betrayal of trust towards its posterity, and to my mind, it is surprising that the total and patent illegality of the use of nuclear weapons in any circumstance whatsoever should even be a subject of discussion. Nuclear weapons lying in their thousands in the arsenals of nuclear powers have the potential to destroy civilization several times over. In the words of Javier Pérez de Cuellar, the former Secretary General of the United Nations, the world's stockpile of nuclear weapons today is equivalent to 16 billion tons of TNT. As against this, the entire devastation of Second World War was caused by the expenditure of no more than 3 million tons of munition. In other words, we possess a destructive power of more than 5,000 times of what caused 40 to 50 million deaths not too long ago. It should suffice to kill every man, woman, and child 10 times over. Under these circumstances, one wonders whether in the light of common sense, it can be doubted that to exterminate vast numbers of enemy population, to poison the atmosphere, to induce them with cancers, keloids, and leukemias, to cause congenital defects and mental retardation in large numbers of unborn children, to devastate their territory and render their food supply unfit for human consumption, whether such acts as these can conceivably be compatible with the elementary considerations of humanity. Unless one can in all conscience answer such question in the affirmative, the argument is at an end as to whether nuclear weapons violate humanitarian law and therefore international law. Furthermore, the next use of nuclear weapons will not be on a target unable to retaliate, but will probably draw nuclear retaliation from even more than one source, given that some nuclear powers are under the protection of non-nuclear powers. Such an exchange of nuclear weapons will result, according to expert opinion, in a nuclear winter, which could obliterate sunlight over a vast segment of the Earth's surface and effectively destroy our means of sustenance. This would inevitably result in our reversion to the most primitive lifestyle if humanity is fortunate enough to survive. It seems even clearer today than ever before that there can be no legitimate argument in morality, religion, or law to justify the use of nuclear weapons, which is so contrary to all the principles of international law and have been built over the centuries. Against this background, the world would have been surprised to hear that the newly elected British Prime Minister is reported to have said, in response to a question posed by a member of Parliament, that she is personally prepared to authorize a nuclear strike that could kill hundreds of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. It seems inconceivable that in this day and age, any head of government or person in such position should issue a statement to the effect that the killing of untold hundreds of thousands of people, the pollution of the atmosphere for thousands of generations to come, the decimation of the human race, and the destruction of the world food supply should even be within the sphere of contemplation. In this regard, it is essential to draw attention to the multicultural and ancient origins of the laws of humanitarian conduct. Basic rules in Hindu, Judaic, Buddhist, Christian, Chinese, and Islamic teaching and global cultural traditions are all in complete harmony, that our common goal is the achievement of peace on earth, the avoidance of war, the humanitarian conduct, and the peaceful settlement of disputes. As such, the humanitarian rules of war are not to be regarded as new sentiments invented in the 19th century and so slenderly rooted in universal tradition that they may be slightly overridden. Although we live in a supposedly enlightened age, all the ancient civilizations thought always in the terms of several generations yet to come. All world religions likewise made it our imperative duty to be trustees of the environment and not to damage it in any way. There can be no doubt whatever that if the teachings of religions are followed, humanity will find itself on the high road to global peace, where there has been humanity's dream since time immemorial. Unfortunately, these teachings have been grossly violated over the centuries, even by countries professing to follow them. We have weapons available today, a single one of which surpasses in atrocity and destructive power all the weapons used in World Wars I and II combined. The dangers of the human future is thus greater than ever before in human history. While the danger signals are flashing all around us and the problems before us are growing, we do not realize that a solution is at hand if only we would use it. The solution is to work out a set of rules of international conduct which all the world accepts and which will be binding not through the force of arms, but through its own compelling and moral authority. Religion can therefore form a bridge to restore the connection between international law and the religious wisdoms which is broken during the religious wars of the 17th century. The concurrence of the teachings of all religions on the fundamental principles underlying international law is as clear as daylight. It is therefore essential to highlight the teachings of peace enshrined in the great repositories of global religious wisdoms, which is a common heritage of all humanity, and thus to identify the causes of war and to show how all religions are at one in condemning such conduct and how to use such inhumane weapons of mass destruction shatter to fragments every religious rule. It is for us to make the most of this judgment, which in so many ways categorically states the inhumanity and illegality of this weapon of unprecedented destructive power. This weapon is a betrayal of our responsibility as human beings to all our fellow human beings, both now and in generations to come. It is time for us to discard these selfish thoughts and realize that no generation since the human race began has acted so regardlessly of the rights of our children and the generations yet to come. It is my hope that this conference will achieve this result and propagate to all the world an outright condemnation of the brutalities of this weapon, which have been so clearly formulated in so many parts of the Court's advisory opinion. One of the greatest duties we owe towards our children, and a fortiori to our children's children, who are unable to speak for themselves. Every religion stresses this, and the nuclear weapon contradicts this in shattering terms. With my best wishes for much success in your deliberations, Judge Christopher Weeramatry. Thank you.